everybody. Today I have a video for you that I made for a design team application. Now I didn't get chosen for the design team, so I can go ahead and share that video here with you. Just know that it is a little bit salesy because it was for a crafting business. So let's go ahead and check it out.
For today's tutorial, we are going to be making these little gift pouches for Halloween. Now, with the world events the way they are, Halloween is going to be very different this year, and so we thought if trick-or-treating doesn't happen, why not make some personalized gift pouches for close friends and do our Halloween celebrating that way. So let's get started. Here are the supplies you will need for this project. Most of these can be found at scrapbookpal.com, and if you can't find something specific, you can find an alternative. So here I'm starting off with my paper trimmer, and then I've got the Gina K Black Amalgam ink pad, and this is great because we're going to be doing some watercoloring, and that will be a bleed-proof ink. And then I have a selection of colors, also from Gina K, and all those colors except for the purple come in a collection pack, so you can get them all at once. Then I have the blending brush from Picket Fence. I have some score tape. You're going to need a really strong double-sided adhesive to build the pouches. I have a 6x6 paper pad from Lawn Fawn, and this is actually a rainbow paper pad, but it will still work for Halloween. And then I have my Misty stamping tool, and this will come in very handy to make duplicate multiple projects. I have this silver twine that I just purchased at a fabric store. The stamp set that I'm using is Lawn Fawn Costume Party, and you see some little cloudy images there, and that is because I'm going to be making some masks with the Gina K masking paper in order to ink our projects. And then I have the Marvy jewel picker, and this is just going to help us with aligning our stamps. Of course, we're going to need some plain cardstock, a good pair of long scissors, a good pair of short scissors, a hole punch, a little mini mister for cleaning up. I've got some Nuvo drops for adding some finishing touches, and then this is a Wink of Stella clear glitter pen. We're going to use that for watercoloring. Just a regular pencil. Finally, this is an ancient repositionable adhesive. Scrapbookpal.com does carry the new one, and I will have a link for you. Right, let's start building our project. I am just going to take a sheet of paper out of my paper pad, and I'm going to apply my score tape to two of the edges because I'm going to fold this into a triangle shape in order to create the pouch. Now I'm just going to adhere one side at the beginning so that we can leave it open to fill it with treats at the end of the project. I will continue making as many pouches as I need for this project, and for this video I just made 4 pouches. And while I didn't film this part, you could also use 2 sheets of 6x6 pattern paper adhered together to create a larger square pouch as well. All right, the heart of our project is actually these tags that we're going to create and decorate, and I am cutting down just a plain white piece of cardstock to 2 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And if you do it this way, you'll end up with 8 tags and a little bit of leftover. Today, I am just going to use 4 of them. And then I will show you right now we just have rectangles of paper. So let's go ahead and turn them into tags. I'm going to use my Misty to help me with this, and I'm just going to line up my tag on the grid that is part of that Misty, and then I'm making equal marks on each of the edges of my tags, and then I'm just cutting between those marks to create the tag shape. Voila, all done. So now I am going to draw around this tag to give me a spot to work with, and this is going to help me line things up to make all of my tags identical. The outline of that tag on our Misty mat, we can start building our little scene, and I am taking my stamps and placing them face down onto my Misty mat, and that way when I close the lid will catch on to the back side of the stamp. And in order to help align some of these tiny pieces, I am using the jewel picker here to help me get that little tiny question mark in line with the phrase that I chose, which says trick or treat. And then down below, I'm adding the next phrase that says treats, of course, and the little bowl of candy that is a part of this stamp set. All my stamps aligned where I want them, I close the lid of my MISTI and you see all the stamps got picked up. And before I start working with all my tags, I always do a test stamp to see that everything is lined up nicely, and the grid on the MISTI helps me make sure things are straight. And then with that repositionable adhesive, I'm going to line my tag up into the little frame that I built and stamp my image, and it's looking good, so I'm happy. Now I'm going to leave that adhesive on the back because that's going to help me when we get to the decorating and watercoloring part. I will continue on with the rest of my tags and we'll come back. Before I put my stamps away, I am sure to clean them. I use my mini mister, and this is just an automotive chamois, but Lawn Fawn does make a really cute chamois that is available at scrapbookpal.com for cleaning your stamps. Next up, I'm making masks for our stamping project, and I just stamped my images onto this masking paper by Gina K. And what this paper is a slightly tacky backed adhesive paper. And what you do with it is you stamp your images, cut it very close to the outline, and then you'll use that to cover up the images on your project. And when we start inking, those spaces will be protected from getting ink where we don't want it to be. And that will become clear in a minute if you've never done masking before. And I should say that these masks are reusable up to a certain point. Now they won't last forever, but they should get you through this project. I've got all my masks in place and now I'm ready for inking this project. So we're going to have some inking and we're going to have some watercoloring. So for this inking, I am going to use this brown color, and I will have colors linked below too. And I'm going to use some scratch paper and this little slice of cardstock to block off part of my project that I don't want to be inked. And you see that little bowl of candy down there has the mask on top of it. And when I apply this brown ink over that bowl of candy, the bowl will be protected and remain white for later watercoloring. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to repeat this step with the top. Now these brushes are great because you can just rub off the excess ink and move on to your next color. You don't have to necessarily scrub them in between colors. Now I do work from a lighter color of ink to a darker color of ink when I'm reusing my blender brushes, and I will give them a wash at the very end of a blending session, but when you're working on a single project, it works fine to do it this way and switch colors in between. And when I'm done with that inking, I remove my masks and I just save them on the storage pouch that I use to store my stamps. And I will actually put them onto my stamp sheet later. Now we're ready to move on to the watercoloring portion. I have all my colors and I have this scratch piece of plastic that is just leftover packaging. I have my Wink of Stella pen here and all my colors. And with this scratch piece of plastic, I have slipped a white piece of cardstock into it, and I am just going to press my inks onto this cardstock. Oh, I was making sure it didn't have any contamination there. And I am going in rainbow order, and I'll tell you a little bit about why specifically I'm doing that in a moment. But I'm just putting all my colors out in rainbow order, and that's what's nice about these little cubes is that you can get an affordable set of lots of colors and use them for different techniques, stamping and watercoloring and so on. Now I am using my Wink of Stella to pick up a little bit of that color, and I'm going to start adding color into the areas of my stamps. Now it is best to do all of one color first because every time you need to switch colors, you're going to have to clean off your pen, and that kind of wastes some of the sparkle shimmery juice inside of these pens. So that is another reason why I'm working in rainbow order, because when I clean my pen, I don't have to make sure it is crystal clear before I move on to the next color, as that next color won't cause cross-contamination. So here you see me giving it a little bit of clean, and then I am going to pick up my next color. And actually I went with pink because I forgot to put it up there in rainbow order, but pink is close to red, so I am doing that color next. Now while I watercolor, let me tell you a little bit about these Wink of Stella pens. These are filled with a fluid that has fine micro shimmer to it. And if you remember back to the very beginning of this video, there was a close-up that detailed some of that shimmer, and I will show you again at the end. And because these are like a watercolor paintbrush, they have that fluid inside of them, If they start running dry, you will need to give them a tiny bit of a squeeze in order to pull more fluid down and allow you to continue with the watercoloring. If you have a drier brush, you're going to get harsher lines, and if you have a moister brush, you'll get smoother flow to your color, and that will give you a more shaded look. Speaking of shading, I don't overcomplicate things. What I do is with the most intense color on my brush, I outline the edges of the image, and then I just work my way from the outside edge into the image, and that will give me a natural level of shading, and I don't fuss with details beyond that. Now, if you find you run out of ink, I would clean it off first before you re-ink your little palette there so that you don't get the sparkle contamination onto your ink pad. And here I am just giving you a little bit more of a close-up of that process of inking around the edges and then dragging out to the center of the image. When I move on to the skin tones of these little kids, I do the same thing with my brown color that I did with the costume colors. And I take a heavy coat of this brown ink and I trace around the edges of the skin, and I just pull that color into the center of their faces so that it adds a little bit of shading and gives some dimension to the project. And I love this little brown color because you can add more or less of the brown color and get lighter and darker skin tones all with just one color. My watercoloring done, we're ready to assemble these treat bags. Now, I was just testing to make sure my candy would fit, but before you fill them, you actually want to complete this next step where I just hold the tag against my triangle and then I cut off about a 10-inch piece of my twine and I just thread it through these holes, and I start from the back and come forward, and then I do another loop back to the front, and then I'm just going to tie it into a bow, and that will finish off this portion of the project. And then I am ready to fill this little pouch with the candy, and you can see it just fits in there. I pull off my release paper from my score tape, and I just work from one end and press it closed all the way down to the other. But we're not quite done yet. As a final embellishment detail, I'm going to use my Nuvo drops to add some stars to the background of this little trick-or-treating night sky, and then that will finish off our project for this time. Thanks for watching this scrapbookpal.com tutorial video. I hope you enjoyed it, and again, you will be able to find the link to all the supplies available there in the show notes below. I hope you have a wonderful Halloween season. See you next time. I really appreciate you watching. If you got something helpful out of this video, please do give it a like. That helps my channel. And if you want to catch my future videos, please subscribe.